Welcome to PropTech Pulse, the podcast that takes the pulse of prop technology in multifamily. I'm your host, Shelly Robinson, and each week we'll be diving deep into innovations, challenges, and the future of work in property technology and multifamily. From AI-driven property management to blockchain and real estate, we're here to explore how technology is reshaping the way we live, work, and invest in multifamily communities. Whether you're a property manager, a tech entrepreneur, an executive, or even simply curious about the future of living spaces, PropTech Pulse is your weekly dose of insights and inspiration. So let's sync our rhythms and get on with the show. It's time to take the pulse. Welcome to PropTech Pulse. Today I have Chris with me from PredictAP. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm really glad we are having this conversation today. I think it's going to be a good one. And, to kind of kick us off, our listeners really always like to hear the story of what's brought you to this point today in your career and journey. Can you share that with us?
Yeah. So it's a sordid tale. I've I've been working in technology since the late '90s, and things have changed quite a bit from on-prem to commodity hardware to the cloud, and now this AI revolution. I actually started in insurance. I was working as an engineer, systems engineer at an insurance company who sold the first dental and life insurance online back in the '90s.
Wow.
Yeah. I went from that to working in video games. I worked on the biggest at the time, and maybe even still the biggest massive online game. I did that for 7 years, and then I went to the startup space and started working again in InsurTech, kind of a brand of fintech. Did that for about 4 years, and then I went to Apple and I worked on Siri as an engineer. Did that for about 4 years, and then I got approached in 2020 by a friend of mine from high school, our founder, Dave Stifter, and he reached out and he said, I have this really interesting problem in PropTech. You should really consider it. And I was like, oh, I don't know about that. I've been, I've been working in video games and working on Siri and things like that. And he went through and explained what he was thinking about how this problem that we're setting out to solve, which I'm sure we're going to get into, how it really is ripe for disruption and ripe for solving problems in this space with technology, with AI and with ML. And he made a very convincing argument. And so about 4 years ago, we kicked off the PredictAP journey together. So I've really been in PropTech and multifamily for about 4 years and change at this point. And it's been great. So if I was to sum it up, I'd say I've been interested in problems in whatever form they come in and solving those problems for real people with technology. And that's what's brought me here today.
I always say the next big thing is the current big problem we have and whatever it may be, right? And there's sometimes a certain level of comfort in some of our problems in every industry that we don't tackle them. So I'm really curious to learn more about the problem that you are solving. So should we kind of tie that into our next set of questions? Because I always like to talk about where we're headed with work and PropTech and multifamily. Future in the bottle questions of, how do you think work is changing and how do you think PropTech is going to be involved in how that work is changing in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think the biggest shift is in the CFO's office, which has always been a little bit disconnected from like property level nuance. The CFO's office is really going to become the brain of the business. And I think being able to understand the data at scale without having to manually go through data is going to be manually examine the data, really manually understand what's going on that's probably going to be the biggest change. I also think that AI will completely own the transactional side of finance. It's not just going to assist, it's going to own. And the future isn't dashboards, but it's invisible automation. It's workflows that just work. And then finally, I think that We have to stop pretending that there's such a thing as a standard integration. Real estate, multifamily, the other senior living and data centers and all of it, it's very, very localized. The rules are localized. Complexity is local. Every problem has every company has a different chart of accounts, different rules, different quirks, even by property. That's where PredictAP comes in. Our core design is to really understand and expect that nuance and have AI learn from it and apply that. So those are the three really big changes that I see in PropTech over the next 5 years.
You're hitting on some really big themes too. I know of one of my clients, they have 350 properties, and they got 4 analysts that are just digging through data all the time. And it's, the running joke is it's a hazing exercise post MBA to get into multifamily ownership. You got your MBA and you've got these high value people just digging through information, trying to find insights. So generally with a pretty good business intelligence platform to back it up, you're still doing a lot of manual processes in that. That really hit home with what you're saying. And then also engaging the CFO's office differently. Many times they're making those financial decisions, but don't necessarily understand how it affects the rest of the team in those decisions. So I love that AI is coming in and really digging into those insights, as well as automating and creating efficiencies from people whose time is really high value.
Yeah, that's what we're all about. I mean, the thing that we set out to do from the start, and that we're kind of our core product right now, is really about ingesting data over years. So invoice data and how folks have paid their bills, frankly. And what we do with PredictAP is we build machine learning models. We deploy real AI that's not just OCR. It's not just like, pulling a vendor. Pulling a vendor's easy, right? Pulling a property name is easy. Pulling a due date's easy. What about when you have five different expense accounts that all are pretty similar? How do you categorize those line items? And really the only way to do that is to understand that complexity and understand that nuance. And the way that we do that is by building these machine learning models that have like a real understanding of the documents that they're taking in. And they're able to apply the patterns that are local to these individual businesses. And so we've really, we started this in 2021. So before all the big base models, the GPTs and the Anthropics and all of that. And we really started before any of that existed. So we had to train all of our models. We had to ingest data from Yardi, from Nexus. We had to build those models. When I say by hand, I don't necessarily mean by hand, but using like relatively pretty technical processes to build and deploy those models. And in the last couple of years, we've just seen this explosion of the base model. Again, the ChatGPTs and so on and so forth. And it's been interesting to now kind of pull some of that into our tech stack as well.
Interesting. I think about all the staffing challenges in the United States right now too, in property management and multifamily, as a use case of driving efficiencies through that prediction. Transferring accounts payable, that's a very generally monotonous job. It's an important job. It's a technical job. You got to get it right, but it is not a fun job.
Right.
So I love that you're focusing on this and using artificial intelligence to really lean into that. What are kind of some of the aha moments that you and your customers have had as you've rolled this out and transforming this?
Yeah, I think that it's that like the biggest aha is that this technology works really, really good at ingestion and coding, and it leaves the accounts payable team, to do more interesting work than just taking data off of an invoice, doing a little bit of mental processing or looking up how things were paid in the past and applying that to the future. So it leaves the teams open to to do more, frankly, to do the more interesting work that humans are better, more meant to do. I think that the other thing is that you can essentially add a lot of properties and not add to your staff.
Huge. That is a huge topic right now, and the centralization topic right now too in the industry. So efficiencies, staffing, scale. Yeah, love that.
It's really incredible how we can actually understand what's going on these documents in a way that 5 years ago just actually seemed like magic. We really have been able to take that complexity at scale and really build technology that can help you understand what's going on with a corpus of documents or even your individual documents. And it's truly incredible. And the efficiencies that are coming with that, that's our whole value prop, right? It's like, hey, take on more properties, take on double the amount of properties, but don't double your team. Have your staff engaged in the more interesting work that's harder for technology to do right now instead of the more rote sort of work. So that's the big value prop that we're driving. And we've just seen it now with multiple multifamily operators, but then also across the real estate space, but especially with multifamily. We have customers who are processing 10,000 invoices a month, and the amount of time that they were spending per invoice was something quite large. Again, in the kind of complex cases where there's one line item that breaks out into like 5 different properties, or 5 line items that condense into 1 or break out into 10. And the turnover with the job is such that new people come in and they don't understand that nuance, and they have to go back and they have to look at the history to understand what's going on. The fact of the matter is that the technology that we have right now is really, really good at doing that.
I even think about like back in the day, we were trying to train your assistant property managers even on the process of getting the right GL code in. And then you've got in fee management, these multiple GLs. So sometimes you've got the property management company general ledger account, and then you've also got the ownership transferable general ledger account. And you're trying to train them on both of those models. Just the training alone and the mistakes and the corrections, that it's a pretty strong learning curve in that role and that use case to begin with. So addressing all of that in a way that frees up high value service, win-win.
Well, yeah, and then what happens when you lose those people too, right? What happens when they move on to something else? They take all of that knowledge with them. And now you're starting again, and there's just such a massive cost associated with getting that next person up to speed.
That's so true. So true. And I love the efficiency play too, especially the management companies as well. They take on sometimes 30, 40 properties in a month from an ownership group. And to be able to scale without having to train, that is huge without disrupting the business. So love that. So can you share kind of, do you have any percentages on kind of efficiencies that you've created for any of your clients in a case study, or anything that you want to share of deep insight from a case study?
Yeah. So I'll share one specific example. We have a multifamily operator processing 10 plus thousand invoices a month. Before us, their accounting team was hand coding every line, vendor, GL, property. Now we automate more than 80% of that. We are able to really, the OCR stuff is table stakes. It's easy. But again, that's where people are spending 1 or 2% of their time, right? The place where they're really spending a lot of time is on segments, even understanding segments and how to look at that through a historical lens to understand how to apply it to a current lens.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, GL accounts. Like there's so much more time spent on those pieces, and there's a lot of other tech that's doing a great job of just pulling values directly off an invoice. There's no other solution right now that's doing what we are doing, which is actually being able to get at those harder cases. And so, in this one case, we've seen over an 80% automation rate, where we're getting things like vendor percent 98.5% of the time. Pretty easy. We're getting things like GL account for them right over 92% of the time. That's 92% of the time they don't have to spend what they were spending 90% of their time on before.
It's huge. That is very disruptive. This kind of leads me into my next question, and I'm sure this is on the minds of some of our listeners that are looking at, these decisions seem large and looming when in our industry, and several of our industry partners and conversations I have, they're already deep in change management in a lot of different areas. How do you recommend they approach looking at automating something like AP and invoicing? What are the steps they should take to evaluate this and kind of lean into this and changing the way that they think about it?
Yeah, I think that you really have to understand what the nuances are. Like, I've just seen it, having been in some sort of role where I'm automating over the past 25 years now, I've seen people wanting to jump straight to solutions while only understanding like 10% of the problem.
Yeah.
So for me, I've always said, we have to understand the full kind of workflow. We have to understand steps A through N in an incredible amount of detail. And once we understand that, then we should start really small. We should start with automating just the first piece, and we should think very, very clearly about what the interfaces are between solving, step 1 and 2, or maybe even just 1, or maybe even just half of step 1. And so it really is about a deep understanding of the process or the workflow. And then it's about understanding exactly the right kind of increments to do it in. And that's the approach that we've taken with PredictAP. That's exactly where we started. It was like, okay, let's just solve vendor first. Okay, we got a good hold on that. Now let's work on property. Now let's work and kind of taking field by field. And we actually ranked the fields in terms of importance, right? Like, what is the most important to the customer for us to really, really get right? What can they live without for now? And so that whole understanding of the workflow, thinking about the right chunks to solve at the right time, thinking about the way that, you pass things off from bit 1 to bit 2 and really creating a clean interface between those. And then being able to glue all of that together and have it be maintainable. So I know I went maybe a little bit tech forward on that, maybe a little business process forward, but
yeah, I mean, the change management can be really difficult, but I love that you're saying, bite one piece of the elephant at a time. It's a big elephant, and y'all are working to really address the chunks of the elephant, for lack of a better term, than the whole thing. Where do you kind of see things going next in this arena, kind of overall for PropTech and multifamily? If you're waving your magic wand, and you are a technical guy and an AI guy, so where do you think the next thing's coming after biting off the elephant of automation?
I think it's in accounting insights, like really being able to understand, again, if we're able to understand accounting data at scale, what things are important to these operators. Some things that we're starting to look at. Are folks paying late fees and not knowing about it because they're not being categorized as late fees? They're just getting ranked into some other, right?
Yep.
Are people actually, from a previous guest, it's actually something that we're working on. Are people being able to, people buying additional items that aren't like for the property and just rolling them directly into some expense? It's not a big enough expense at a micro level for anyone to really care about. Who cares about $10 here, $10 there? But what does that look like over time? There's internal and external fraud elements that I think that, we can really provide a lot of insights given this tech. I think that there's just like, if we really think about what understanding these documents means,
Yes.
and being able to do that at scale, we're going to be able to solve a lot of really, really interesting problems in this space and provide a lot of interesting insights to operators.
It's been a broken model for a long time in so many ways. And I'm so thankful that we're at this point in our industry with, two big problems: staffing and attraction issues in the industry and getting the right people to stay and retain, along with the ability for automation and technology to solve some of those problems. And then I kind of think about the leadership side, just the types of insights and decisioning you can make so much faster and clearer, that you're able to focus on solving problems that were not visible. You knew they were going on, like you're saying, like, fraud's going on, right? That slippage is going on, or sometimes it's even the vendors invoicing you for things that really shouldn't have happened. And then sometimes it's not even malicious. There's so many areas, or even like what you're spending at property A over property B on particular supplies or maintenance or carpets or different things. Like, I can think of so many different use cases of insights and decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where we're going. That's, it started with coding, ingestion and coding. And now we're sitting on this massive amount of data for multifamily operators and other set classes. We're able to understand a lot about these businesses with that data. And being able to, it's been really interesting being able to say to a customer, or prospective customer who's given us some access, hey, did you know about this? And for them to have no idea that was actually going.
Yeah. You thought maybe, right? Like maybe, or yeah, something's not right, or why is this property struggling, or this portfolio has this.
But when you say, hey, did you know that you paid $67,000 in late fees in the last 8 months? And their eyes are like, whoa, we have a no late fee policy. There's the, speaking of the aha moments, like there's a big aha moment between us and a customer in that sort of situation.
That is a huge aha moment, and preventable through the right systems. And people get behind, people are pulled in all kinds of directions. Sometimes it's not even intentional. It's just as it is. So,
yeah.
You get that insight there. Do you think there are any PropTech trends that are overhyped right now in the industry? Anything that you kind of see going on in artificial intelligence, PropTech in that arena that are overhyped?
Yeah, I think the idea of like a universal sort of solution or universal co-pilot, like the fact of the matter is that we're just dealing with a lot of messy data on the back end. And to be able to say like, hey, there's this one stop shop that doesn't, maybe it's OCR or something like that. Like there's a lot of OCR solutions coming out right now that are trying to, do what we're doing. But the fact of the matter is that it just doesn't solve the whole problem. And it's flashy, but it just solves like such a small piece of the puzzle. If you think about like the total time to the invoice ingestion and coding side, if you think about the total time to code an invoice, very little of that's spent on figuring out the due date. So I think that there's solutions right now in the OCR space, and I think that there's hype around them, but I think that there's overhype here too. And I think that there's more like a general theme there where some universal co-pilot sort of solution is going to work. We've had a lot of folks say things like, oh, we put an invoice into ChatGPT and we were able to, get certain data off of it. Okay, that's great. Can you do that at the scale of 10,000 invoices a month? Like ChatGPT is not the answer to this problem.
No. And I think, I had a conversation the other day with one of my clients, and data is a theme right now, and the complexity of data And I think what I'm hearing you saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's really specializing in a certain portion to get to the data, specializing so that the input and the output and the automation all work together so that that data is
Yeah. Yeah.
real. And that is a big, like a lot of data generalists in the industry that are compiling data. I think that is the challenge is there's everybody compresses their data different or even changes the data or it's raw or it's not raw or it's a combination of data points. Like it's a huge challenge in the industry when I talk to people that work in data and data science.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was really interesting when we first started getting our hands on data. Um, not to say that maybe I did oversimplify it a little bit in my head before we started. I thought, oh, these vendor records are going to be real clean. There's these chart of accounts. It's, of course, these massive institutions or even not massive institutions, just financial institutions, real estate companies in general, like they're going to have their stuff together when it comes to like their financial data. Not always. And sometimes they do. And that's where we come in. We can really, really start to understand what's going on at an organizational level with our solution and also help guide conversations with them about, hey, did you know you have 5 different jail accounts for IT expenses or that are all named just like slightly different, and sometimes invoices are being coded with one and sometimes with another, and so that's another area where we can really help folks understand where the data is messy and how to clean that up.
I'd even think about the old use case of someone told me to do it this way. It's like that way back in the day when I was on property as a property manager, and then you find out it's wrong and you got to go through the recoding exercise. It's that group think that isn't always right. So good intention, but not always right. I'm going to ask you a couple bold predictions. Do you have any bold predictions for multifamily in the next 10 years?
Yeah, I think that the AP team size is going to stay the same, and they're going to be able to handle at least 10x the amount of properties. I think that there's always going to be an AP team. There has to be, but I think that the data, the ingestion, the vast majority of the coding is going to be able to be just the process generally is going to be able to be handled by AI solutions.
I love seeing roles evolve too. Like I think, there's been some fear that roles are going to disappear, but I always think back to my dad my dad was a auto pattern maker and then it became CAD drawer, right? So jobs always evolve and change. They don't really disappear. And so what I hear you saying is the job's going to evolve and not disappear. If you could instantly implement any futuristic technology, and it doesn't even have to be in PropTech, what would that be?
I think a no-code AI-driven data platform that understands chart of accounts and policies. I think that we're really going that way, where it's less and less about like an app, a specific app, or the development of apps. I think that there's a lot of power in this in this space to do a no-code AI-driven data platform that really just helps to understand and clean up data.
Wow. I see it coming. All right. Any advice to multifamily tech savvy professionals who want to stay ahead of what's coming in PropTech and the future? Is there any place that you go and look or anywhere that you get your insights from?
I think staying connected to what the problems are and staying connected to what is happening with the technology. I think that there's a lot of interesting newsletters about this technology. I think that there's a lot of interesting problems that are being exposed and being able to marry those two things together. So, I've really enjoyed things like The Batch. The Batch has done a really good job of distilling what's happening with the AI technology in real time. Frankly, I've really enjoyed listening to multifamily folks talk about the problems that they're solving here on your podcast as well. So I think that being able to understand both pieces, have a deep enough understanding of the problem, and having touch points with like what the solution space are, I think that that's going to bear out good ideas to try to solve problems internally, but then to look externally towards things like PredictAP too. I feel like there's been a lot of conversations we've had where people have said, we tried for a year to solve this problem. And so obviously those folks have been tied into the problems within their organization. They've been tied into the problems in the industry. They've also been tied into the tech. But there's definitely a lot of wisdom in knowing when to go with a third party to solve a specific problem versus when to build something, the classic build versus buy sort of situation.
Well, I'm glad y'all built it. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more success stories about what you're rolling out in the future, and really appreciated your time today, Chris, and speaking with me about this. It was a fascinating conversation and truly a problem-solving conversation. That's critical. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. Thank you.
Awesome. And we'll put your contact information in the post as well. So talk to you soon.
And that wraps up another episode of PropTech Pulse. I hope this conversation has given you valuable insights and perhaps even sparked some ideas for your own PropTech journey. Remember, the future of multifamily is being written right now with every technological advance and innovative solution. So stay curious, stay connected, and keep your finger on the pulse of PropTech. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to PropTech Pulse on your favorite podcast platform and share this along with your colleagues. You can also find us on social media for bite-sized insights and updates. I'm Shelly Robinson, and until next time, let's keep innovating, disrupting, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in PropTech and multifamily. Let's build it together.